Welcome to our conference on maritime archaeology. Thank you all for coming. Thanks to the speakers who have come from near and far to participate in this event. One of our goals in conducting this conference is to have an open discussion debate around several of the issues and controversies that surround the Belatung cargo that the Singapore government owns and is now being exhibited at the Art Science Museum. It was our goal from the start to address issues head-on. We know that there are problems, there have been controversies, the popular press have picked up on certain issues worldwide, and I think it's important that we set the context and also be open about some of the problems involved. And I hope that the discussion that will take place today, and it is meant to be a day of discussion, not simply of long papers. Speakers, please bear time limits in mind, is to actually thrash out some of these issues. And the actual presentation of the exhibition at the Art Science Museum, which I hope you have seen or will see this weekend, makes an attempt to address some of the problems involved. The excavation of the Belatung wreck, although extremely significant and important in uncovering findings and discoveries, was not done perfectly, and we will hear some of that this morning. Nonetheless, the discoveries were extremely important, the methods were sound, and at the end of the day, we have a treasure of world importance, and I think this is something that bears repeating. Archaeological treasures and discoveries belong not to single nations or even to regions. They're part of world patrimony. And as governments and international organizations enact laws and policies, we should bear in mind that there is, in a sense, a greater goal for humanity as a whole, and that is the preservation and understanding of our past. Singapore's ownership of the Belatung cargo, therefore, is important not because the cargo was discovered in Singapore waters, but because it tells a much larger and much more resonant story about the history of peoples. Now, that sounds quite grand, and I'll explain a little bit in detail. We have, for example, a wreck that was found between East and West, as it were. Important objects created in China for the Near Eastern market, a very early period of trade between East and West, being carried on a boat built in the Arabian Gulf with probably woods from Africa or even beyond. So we have already in the 9th century a network of trade and commerce and exchange that also brought peoples and ideas together. The actual objects discovered are fascinating, a realm of proto-porcelain, of early ceramics produced in Tang, China, but also interesting other objects, precious vessels of silver and gold, a range of mirrors, objects connected with writing and scholarship. The whole story is amazingly interesting, and I urge you all, if you don't already own the catalog, to purchase or read one. You'll find contributions written by many of the people in the audience today, exploring the various aspects of this remarkable cargo. And I think the importance of this particular wreck has to be set quite aside from the problems of archaeology in general and to this region in particular. Because the findings of this cargo really help us date much of the material that we've understood in excavations from other sources. It helps us see more completely vessels that have been known to us only in fragment. And in one remarkable example, we have a fully preserved mirror that was only described in the literature. So I think the importance of the cargo, the importance of the discovery is of great importance, and I have to say that Singapore is very proud to be the owner of this. My co-chair for this event is Julian Raby, director of the Freer-Sackler Gallery in Washington, and he's played a crucial role, not least because the Freer-Sackler has been the curatorial ranger of the exhibition and the publisher of the catalog. However, because of urgent matters, he has not been able to come today, and he wants me to communicate his regrets in this matter. He also has a few words that I'm going to try to summarize for you because I think they're quite important. He believes, and I share this, that the very fact that the exhibition has recently generated a certain amount of controversy should actually be viewed as a positive aspect of the entire project, because it is a means of raising awareness and interest among the different constituencies involved in underwater cultural heritage. For Southeast Asia in particular, we hope that this might lead to a reappraisal of our practices, both on the governmental level, but also on the level of the practitioner, to establish perhaps new ethical guidelines, to provide new institutions and means of building capacity. And this is true not only for the countries of our region, but actually for Singapore itself, where archaeology is still a new and developing field. And I think we can all learn together in this way. Capacity building means training, it means exchange of ideas, but at the end of the day, let's be honest, it also means money. And I think the governments of the region, or through mechanisms of private support, need to come up with greater funding for archaeological endeavors. And that will lead in the end, and you'll hear a great deal about this afternoon, this will lead in the end to better preservation of important sites and hopefully the lessening of incorrect practices and looting. So I hope this conference will be an important step in developing some of these understandings. I'm going to conclude with just a couple of general questions that might help us frame our discussion. And the speakers, of course, will be able to drill down in greater detail about this and provide a better summary of some of these issues. First is the Belitung cargo itself and the exhibition. How can we best present this to the world? From my perspective as a museum person, I find that the historical discoveries of the Belitung cargo are of such overwhelming importance that it deserves wide-scale dissemination. The first step, of course, is the catalog. The second is the actual exhibition here in Singapore. But I am a fervent believer that this needs to be seen by the rest of the world, or at least other countries, and needs to be revealed in a greater manner. The web can help that, but of course we know that the encounter with real objects is, of course, extremely stirring, and it's heartening to see that our public so far, our audiences here in Singapore, have responded to the exhibition very well. The second issue is how government policies and international conventions can be tailored to meet the needs of our region. The problems of developing countries, of fishermen and other divers who want to take advantage of these treasures. How can we best establish a policy that moves forward and protects these sites more effectively? Those are our main goals. I'm going to conclude then with a reiteration of a statement about the public as a whole. And it is my great belief that archaeology belongs, in fact, to everyone, not to a single profession or even to single governments. It belongs to the community of scholars as a whole who approach and understand and interpret material in different ways. In a few weeks, actually in less than a week, the Asian Civilisations Museum will open an exhibition of the terracotta warriors from Xi'an in China. One of the most massive archaeological endeavors of our time, begun in 1974, conducted, I think, with great thoroughness and care, so careful in a sense that the very tomb of the first emperor has been left untouched, and it is shocking sometimes to believe that to realize that the great treasures that one sees in Xi'an, and hopefully you will also see it here at the Asian Civilisations Museum, represent just a tiny fraction of the overall picture. Nonetheless, the Shanxi Provincial Archaeological Bureau has made an attempt to share these treasures with the rest of the world. In the very beginning, by touring copies of the treasures, but of course in recent decades by touring select examples that were fit to travel, that could reveal an important aspect of Chinese civilization to the rest of the world. And I think this is, in a sense, a nice link and model for our own Belaton cargo and how this might be presented to wider audiences to develop an understanding of a period where East-West ties were extremely strong, where international connections were able to bring peoples together in various and fascinating ways. So those are my particular comments. I apologize for their length. With a little bit of business, the first three speakers this morning have agreed to change order. So with a certain amount of apology to the audience, the first three speakers will move in a different way. In fact, exactly the opposite order that we see on the program. We'll begin with John Miksic, and then be followed by Chong Guan, and then conclude the morning session before tea with Mike Flecker.